We're going to get started in just a couple minutes, but there are some sign-in sheets for anyone wishing to speak tonight. Please just make sure you put your name on the sign-in sheet. Everybody good? Good. Clerk's meeting good? Good evening. It now being 7:01 on Thursday, November 14th. We're going to begin this meeting of the Committee of Ordinance and Rules. I'd ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask everyone to remain standing for a moment of silence for all of those in our military and public safety serving both here and abroad. Thank you. Clerk Semina, could we have a roll call to begin the meeting?
Councillor Ringus?
Here.
Councillor Hume?
Here.
Councillor Flaherty?
Here.
Councillor Moran?
Here.
Councillor Quilty?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Semino. For approval of minutes, we have no minutes to approve this evening. Old business, we have no old business. Moving on to new business. 24034 Braintree Property Associates Limited Partnership, SSP 131 Lakeside LLC, SSP 135 Lakeside LLC, Section 135-612, Zoning Map and Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment, creation of a PUD district known as a Mixed-Use Plan Unit Development District, or taking up any action relative thereto. In more English and layman's terms, this is in regards to a possible rezone of a certain parcel of property at the South Shore Plaza, currently known as the ZOM project. This has worked its way through the planning board with a favorable recommendation to the full council. When something comes from the planning board to the full council, it is first has a series of hearings with the Ordinance and Rules Subcommittee. This committee will make some sort of a recommendation, whether that be favorable or unfavorable, to the full council. And it is just that, a recommendation from this committee. The full council will be taking this up at a full council meeting with a public hearing where there will be public comment, obviously, as well. That public hearing is currently scheduled for November 19th, depending what happens with any sort of recommendations from this committee. We did meet last night. It was, thank you to BCAM for televising. We heard from the petitioner, the ZOM, through Jim Dunlop and attorney Frank Marinelli. We heard the planning board recommendations from planning director Melissa Santucci-Rousey. We also heard from representatives of Simon Properties, Tim Fox, who is the development director, and Clay Hallman, their director of research. I have chaired the O&R subcommittee for a while now with all of these sort of rezones. I know they are contentious at times, and they can be, there can be a lot of emotions that go with these. I know that residents want to be heard, and I want to give residents the right to be heard, so whenever I conduct O&R meetings, I always do have a public comment night, and tonight is the public comment night. If you would like to speak, I mentioned it at the outset, there are some sign-up sheets. Please add your name to the sign-up sheet. I have one of them up here already, and you'll be called to the podium. When you come to the podium, please introduce yourself, your name and your address, and you will be given 5 minutes to speak. Tonight is not a Q&A session. It's not going to be a back and forth. The committee is here to hear people's thoughts and concerns about this project. Obviously, there is, I think, two sides to it, and it is a contentious issue. When folks are speaking, I would just ask that we show respect, whether what they're talking about is something you agree with or there's something you disagree with. We just want to ensure that everyone has the right to address the committee. With that said, before we get public comment underway, do any of the committee members wish to speak? Seeing none, I would ask the first person to the podium, which is Kelly Moore.
Kelly Moore, 46 Hollis Ave. Chairman Ringus and members of O&R, appreciate the opportunity to speak and raise concerns we have about the project. The MBCA has been working to protect this neighborhood for over 40 years, primarily from development and primarily from the plaza. It's been a number of years that we've been able to sit down with the plaza and have a discussion simply because they've not made themselves available. This is a larger project than ZOM's proposal last year. Although they're advertising this as a smaller project, their last proposal was 295 units. This is 3.25. So we do request that they reduce the number of units below their last advertised number. They're telling us that this has no negative impact on the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I don't know if they even know there's a neighborhood right there or a school. The affected neighborhood does not feel that way. We should listen to what the neighbors are telling them instead. They said this is going to be a complete separation from the neighborhood, but according to what I saw last night, they're really trying to integrate the walking paths into the neighborhood. We're not sure what the primary access to the emergency vehicles will be into this development. We prefer it not be Lakeside Drive. We request that there will be as much separation from the neighborhood as possible, including additional buffer, and no walkway path into the neighborhood. We ask that Town Council protect the neighbors, protect the neighborhood, and we ask that you reject this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Alan Flowers.
Thank you. Alan Flowers, 48 Fallon Circle, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak against this rezoning or zoning overlay. I've got a lot of reasons that you should vote against this, but and a lot of people will speak against it. But the basic thing is we don't have the infrastructure for this. You guys rezoned the transit for development for apartment blocks that are going to put in thousands of units. And we can't have any more of these one-off rezonings until all that's built out, because we don't know how much traffic that's going to add to town. We don't have any water. The reservoir is dry. Where's the water going to come from for these apartment blocks? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if there was a way to build out of a financial crisis, then Quincy would have done it. The last time I checked, Quincy has a lower residential tax rate than Braintree does. Has a higher residential tax rate than Braintree does. So you can't build your way out of this. It's ridiculous. Again, I would hope that you would reject this and recommend that it be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Liz Page.
Hello, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. And I would like to say that on behalf of the North Braintree Civic Association, the NBCA, I request that the Committee on Ordinance and Rules provide an unfavorable recommendation for MUPUD application number 24-034. The applicant, ZOM, has continually ignored and diminished the importance of the abutting neighborhood, the Flaherty neighborhood. This was demonstrated by the ice cream parties that Zom was hosting in all of the other parts of our town until Zom was called out for doing so. Zom was hosting these informational meetings everywhere, but the area that was most impacted by this proposal, District 1, the Flaherty neighborhood, our neighborhood. I'm going to need a drink of water. Excuse me. Sorry for the disruption, a little drama, just to get everyone going. Anyway, I bring this up to illustrate the fact that Zom believes that this zoning change request is a shoo-in. They believe that the Flaherty, the Flaherty neighborhood does not, sorry about that, does not matter, and that the town officials will approve anything that this applicant puts before them. It is also important to note that Zom did meet with some of the Flaherty residents an obligatory couple of times, but these discussions were simply done to check a box. There was never a sincere attempt to compromise with the residents. Zom would never consider changing the style proposed to be more compatible with the abutting single-family home neighborhood, or possibly relocate the huge apartment building closer to the 99 building, where it would have less impact on our neighborhood. Zom did not feel any pressure to compromise because they believe this is a done deal. Additionally, it is very disingenuous when the current proposal is referred to as a smaller project. They, Zom, are currently proposing a 325-unit apartment building. The last rendition in 2023 was for 295 units. Clearly, this proposal is bigger than their last. The current proposal would be the largest apartment building built in Braintree, right up against a residential neighborhood of single-family homes and an elementary school. There is zero compatibility with this abutting neighborhood. It is not compatible in size and in scale or in style. It would overwhelm our neighborhood. One of the 19 bylaws that the applicant exempted from their zoning request is 135-702B regarding buffer zones. Under no circumstance should this bylaw be exempted. Since Simon Properties is selling this parcel, it no longer affords the conditions of the special permit issued to Simon Properties. This bylaw was specifically written to protect residential and open space and conservancy districts from allowing encroachment by commercial and highway business districts. This requirement specifically calls for a 100-foot buffer and does not allow it to be used for parking or for any other accessory structure or use except for access. Buffer zones, 1, applicability. In commercial districts and highway business districts, no building structure or part thereof shall be erected or placed within 100 feet of any residential or open space and conservancy district line. Any building in a Residence A or B district shall be set back at least 30 feet from an open space and conservancy district, and in the case of Residence C district, at least 50 feet. 1. Okay, thank you. All right, I won't bother reading through all the requirements of the buffer zone. It is in my letter, and I hope everybody on the council did receive that. During the meeting last night, the question and answers for the Ordinance and Rules Committee members, the Director of Planning addressed the bike path also being used as an emergency egress for the South Shore Plaza in lieu of the current emergency exit and gate at the Circle, as it was referred to last night. The residents fought long and hard for this Circle and the gate, and that condition is an integral part of the current South Shore Simon Properties special permit. If this option is being discussed, what is being proposed to ensure residents and others do not use this paved road? Merely stating it is not going to enforce it. Anyone from Lakeside Drive to Common Street to Washington Street to West Street will be tremendously impacted by anything that deviates from that current condition. The neighbors are more than willing to participate and discuss options for this proposal. Therefore, we ask that per the mayor's campaign promise of robust discussion with the neighborhoods to see what they can live with, our neighborhood, the Flaherty neighborhood, the most impacted area by this proposal, and any future changes to it to be included prior to going to the town council.
That's your time, Ms. Page.
I'm sorry?
Your time's up.
Okay. Thank you. We ask that you give this proposal an unfavorable recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Next up, we have Stevens Shasha.
Sorry. All right. Thank you. Can I first just say that I find it disappointing that this committee decided to limit public speaking. It's a small crowd here tonight. The meeting last night went on for 2.5 hours. There's really no reason to limit public speaking on this. But since you have, Ordinance and Rules has always historically been the place where residents could sit with the committee and dialogue back and forth. And I see that the Director of Planning didn't even show up tonight to address questions. There has been no venue where the public could, in a public setting, interact and dialogue with their elected representatives and the planning department on this project. That's a real shortcoming, and the town council should make sure that that happens. I guess since you're not going to answer questions, I feel like I'm just lecturing you, but let me go ahead and lecture you. Zom mentioned Legacy Place, Hanover Crossing, University Ave. All of those were done through comprehensive plans. I would challenge anybody to identify a desirable mall in this region that was developed piecemeal like this. It just doesn't work that way. Frank said that there's reputational harm that comes from our town to being not open to quality development. What is the reputational harm when shoppers from all over Massachusetts think, as Councilor Ringus' teenage passenger said, shopping in Braintree sucks? Tim Fox said that they have a master plan and gave 3 steps: this project, the 99, and then nothing. You notice that he did not commit to anything that involves investment in the mall itself. They can make all the excuses they want about long-term leases, but I can guarantee you that their long-term leaseholders are not telling them, no, don't fix the crumbling garage. No, don't fix the leaking roof. Don't replant all the bushes and trees that have died off and have left dirt piles everywhere. Don't get rid of the dozens of dumpsters you're storing in the parking lots, in the trash under the stairs. These things are all done in violation of the existing special permit, and the mayor's office is unwilling to enforce that special permit. Simon Property Group could invest, and they say that attracting tenants, high-end tenants, is competitive. What high-end tenant is going to come to the plaza in the condition that it's in right now? That's why they're not there. You know, Councilor Flaherty, you pointed out the $30 million loss in value in the plaza. That's 1 year. In 2021, the valuation of the building was $252 million. It's now $190 million. That's a $62 million loss that is entirely due to Simon Property's negligence in maintaining the property. How does the mayor's office and the town council allow that to happen? And not only allow that to happen, but every time Simon comes to the table, they say, yes, we'll give you whatever you want. I would challenge this committee to have long and determinative hearings about the zoning. The planning board did issue a positive recommendation to this, but the planning board never discussed the zoning being proposed in any detail. They refused to do that despite residents asking them to. This committee should feel obligated to discuss the zoning at length and in great detail, because there are a lot of loopholes they've built in here for themselves, and if that discussion isn't had, you own the results of that. You know, Councilor Quilty, you pointed out the fiscal review, but I would just ask you a couple of questions, which you're not going to answer. They're assuming $10,000 of expense per student. Braintree's expenses are almost double that. Part of the reason for that, as you well know, having gone through your first budget cycle, is that things like post-employment retirement benefits, insurance, and health and retirement benefits don't show up in the school's budget. They are in the HR and finance budgets. Those expenses do not seem to be factored in here. In addition, they are assuming 0.1 students per housing unit, where Braintree averages 0.35 students per housing unit. They compare themselves to Quincy, but Quincy as an entire town only has 0.2 students per housing unit. You can't compare the two. All you'd have to do to get answers to those questions is ask the school department. Lenox Farms, Liberty Park, and Ridge, how many students live at those addresses? Ask the apartment complex how many vacancies they had during the year, and you can figure out those numbers. Why has nobody asked those questions? In order for you to believe the valuations here, you have to, the current most valuable multifamily property in Braintree is Lenox Farms, valued at $99 million. They're telling you their property will be worth $114 million. So to put that in perspective, 50 acres, 344 townhomes renting for $4,400 a month is worth 20% less than their 7 acres and 325 units. That doesn't make sense. And the reason they're giving you is not that they're overvalued, but rather that every other property in this town is undervalued. If you think about those numbers, because what that means is that you have been overtaxing every other property in town and subsidizing multifamily properties. Is that true? Why is nobody talking about this? Why will you not dig into these numbers? And I will just conclude. Melissa said, the clear distinctions between desirable centers and the current proposal are community support, a long-term vision of the property, and a fairly robust planning effort. In the last meeting, she said she'd given up on a long-term plan. Well, some of us have not given up. And you can say, we're going to do this because it's easy, but we keep doing the easy thing, and look at where we are as a town. We don't even address our schools and our budget for next year because those are hard. Thank you.
Charles Donovan. Good. When we go on to our second sheet, if anyone came in, I know a few people did wander in late. Is there still a sheet over there, Mrs. Semino? There is a sign-in sheet. If anyone else wanted to speak, I have one more list I'm going through, but if you haven't signed in, please sign in. Rob Cutter.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Now, I'm not someone with the stake in this game. I'm not a highly paid lawyer. I'm not a multi-million-dollar developer. I'm just a lifelong resident of Braintree, someone who loves this town and would like to remain in this town, not city. This project is extremely out of place, too large, too straining on our resources in a time where the town is strapped for cash. When you're low on cash, do you bring in more mouths to feed, or do you find additional other revenue sources? One possibility that I've encountered is putting speed cameras up on main streets and in school zones and make revenue off of the traffic tickets from people speeding. There are much better options for development in this town. Perhaps townhomes or smaller single-family homes that would appeal to people like me, late 20s, early 30s, who want to lay down roots in Braintree, where we grew up, and build equity instead of paying ZOM monthly rent. For years now, ZOM has been trying to bully their way into building their cash cow of a project, which would be at the expense of you, me, and every single one of us. They have not once made any changes in the design, layout, style, or any other way despite the public input and the opposition to it. They got shut down, made a campaign contribution last year, and now they're trying again. However, there's another election coming up in less than a year. The majority of residents oppose the construction of large apartment blocks. In several polls, they were rated as the least desirable project by a vast majority of the people in this town. The majority of the residents oppose the construction of large apartment blocks. The majority of residents are also not too happy about the state that the town is in at the moment. All I can say is that for those of you on the council, if you vote to shutter this project, your next election, it might as well be a layup unguarded. You can slam dunk it. If it's approved, the voters won't be too thrilled. I hope and I assure you that thousands of residents are hoping that you make the right decision. Stand with the residents. Don't stand with the corporate developer. Vote Braintree. Vote no. Thank you.
Justine Huang.
Hi. Thank you. Justine Huang, 25 Lakeside Drive. Last night, I watched the entirety of the broadcast, and thank you for the director, our chair, and councils who asked great questions. And I also got opportunity to listen to our planning board director, Ms. Santucci, who does not live in Braintree, giving her professional perspective of the zoning after the recommendations. And what I want to bring out is I'm not sure who can represent us as a resident when our director is only looking at professional building perspective, and I might be wrong that she's supposed to representing us to have a safe and reasonable development in towns. So what I want to bring up was first that couple zoning bylaw that I'm really concerned about that I try to protect my neighborhoods for. The first one is the 135-904 for general business area, item number 3. Roof signs, no roof sign shall be permitted. Projected sign, no projected sign which extend over the public way still shall be permitted. And wall sign, those was one of the examples that ZOM has asked to excuse from them. And I do not really want to see an X sign shining on our neighborhood if those rules is not applied into this development. It means that they can put anything on top of the roof, and we know that forced storage is already directly shining into our neighborhood with no mature trees being covered by this new development. So that is 135-904. Another one that I want to bring up is the cluster zoning, 135-610, which indicate that the promotion of the effective land and harmony of the natural feature with that master giants 325 units with the parking garage underneath it with no regulation in terms of what they can put on the roof. I'm not sure that how do our town continue to be Braintree. I'm here to protect so that my kids able to call Braintree at the home after college when they decided to build their families. And furthermore, for that zoning cluster, 135-610, and some of the zoning criteria example is the substantial of lands that increase the decrease of the development include the wetland protections, drainage systems. We had those in our bylaw to protect our town's resource. We have those in our bylaw to protect our natural systems. And lakeside, the reservoir is part of the flood zones. And our neighborhood, some of the family down the road still have to purchase flood zone insurance because of that. And this is completely excluded from this zoning. I know the South Shore Plaza I was looking for had a phase 2 after this development. I know the owner who is doing it, who want to have the 99 restaurants. And you know why Simon's Mall is waiting for that, waiting for this development to be complete? Because so they can negotiate for higher price for development of 99. So what I'm here is asking, who can protect our residents? Who can help us to provide the harmony that we're trying to live and try to provide to our families, except our planning board director provided professional review, professional options. And also she considered the circle is why is there, because that's Laurie Way, that's our community. So thank you for listening, and I hope that the board can add more of the restriction, review the exclusion that zone have asking for before approving this request. Thank you.
John Herring.
John Aaron, 141 Walnut Street. Our new master plan, Chapter 9, Residential, Neighborhoods, and Housing Options, has a theme which includes that are compatibly scaled and well-designed to harmonize with the context of the surrounding neighborhood. This project does not meet that criteria. In addition, there are a large number of bylaw exemptions. Other developers do not have these exemptions or seek them. Why does ZOM need them? Granting these exemptions is poor policy and sets a poor precedent for the next developer. I urge you to turn this down. Thank you.
Robert Toma?
Good evening. The last time I spoke up here was when you guys were considering the override and you did it. I don't know why everybody isn't here. This is only the second time I've come up and spoken in public. I don't understand. This is important. I'm certain people have a reason why they're not here. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I didn't know that. Like I said, I'm new to this. I want to applaud Councilor Flaherty. I applaud you for what you did last night. You asked pointed questions that needed to be asked. I watched that entire thing. It was drudgery. I know that these guys have a job to do, trying to sell us on this project. But what I keep not understanding, all of these people have been speaking against this project now for 2 years, and they don't want it in their neighborhood. And you persist, and I get the deal with the money, the lack of money. But the people who are in government, they know this has been going on for a really long time. And the reason why we're in dire straits is the town government hasn't been paying attention. So that's on you guys. It is. I know that you guys can work through it, but the thing is, you just can't throw what they don't want this. And it doesn't matter that they're proposing this. They don't want it in the neighborhood. And it's kind of ironic that you want to give them, the people that might live there, a pristine view of the dam, but you're going to take it away from the people that already live there and have lived there forever. So I applaud all of you for what you're doing and why you're here. I talked to the gentleman from ZOM, and I want him to get a chance to build here. That's a bad piece of property. I would urge you guys to find another place they can go. I respect what the council is doing. It's his job. What you people need to get Simon here. They're the problem. They're the neighbor that has their dog go to the bathroom on your lawn, and you guys want to do business with them. I wouldn't. They're not reliable, and they never have been. And they haven't done things for years. And you were right to, just like Steve and all the other people from the North Braintree Civic Association pointed out, they're not taking care of their property because they don't want to. Because they're waiting for the shoe to drop so they can come in and sell this bad piece of property. Sorry, guys. I'd rather be more upbeat. That's all I have. Thank you.
David Cunningham?
Good evening. I live as far away from the South Shore Plaza and still reside in Braintree as you can get. And yet, I think I've got something in common with some of the people who have been here tonight and the other nights in the past. There's a big concern about encroachment on neighborhoods. I know it because I live in a neighborhood that's been encroached upon. But I can look at the buildings that were built near my house, right near the landing, both on the Weymouth side and the Braintree side. I've got no beef with the buildings. I've got no beef with the people who live in the buildings. In some respects, the entire area is nicer now than it was when I moved here almost 40 years ago. with respect to this project, I'm in favor of putting housing at the South Shore Plaza. Whether it's this identical project or not, which from what I understand is the fourth version of this project, is something that doesn't really matter to me. I get that some people might be opposed to it, but it appears as if some people are going to be opposed to the 100th version of this project, if that's how many times it gets proposed. They don't represent the other 35,000 people in the town. There are plenty of people in this town who would like to see some development take place in this town, especially in places where it makes sense. Large shopping malls all over the country have been adding housing, and it hasn't caused problems. In some respects, it's helped them. And I suspect that in the long run, if housing gets added to the South Shore Plaza, it's going to help the town of Braintree. I hope that if it does get built, the town is thoughtful in dealing with the legitimate concerns that people have. You know, they do need a buffer. And the town does need to deal with an inadequate water supply and all of the other infrastructure issues that have to come with big development. We already know that we're probably going to be having big development to other parts of the town down the road. In fact, with the MBTA zoning that's in place, we could have 10 times as many apartments as what we're talking about at the South Shore Plaza. So for purposes of dealing with this particular project, I personally have no problems with it. I don't think it is going to have a huge impact on the neighborhood. But I do think that it does make sense to try to address some of the reasonable concerns that anybody would have. If it's going to have bright lights, try to make sure they're not shining in people's windows. There's no reason not to have trees and bushes to act as somewhat of a buffer. Whether the buffer is 100 feet or 50 feet or 300 feet, you can argue about that all day. Give them some kind of a buffer, though. I would also, by the way, encourage the elected representatives of the town to consider seeking some form of mitigation. I don't understand why the town doesn't seek mitigation on big projects. It takes place elsewhere. The developer would be well served by perhaps considering some mitigation. I don't understand why people would be opposed to walking paths. I like the idea that I can walk from my house and go over to the train station in the landing and have walking paths to do it. And they exist. I would think people who live in the neighborhood might want to be able to walk to the South Shore Plaza on a walking path that's in decent shape. I know that this is a contentious issue. I've sat through multiple meetings and watched the toxic discussion that has taken place previously, and I'm kind of happy tonight that it hasn't gotten toxic. Hopefully, it will remain that way. All we're doing is talking about a building, okay? And just keep it in mind, it's a building. It's not going to destroy the town. Thank you.
That is everyone that I've had sign in to talk. Was there anyone that perhaps came in that wanted to speak that didn't get a chance to sign in? All right. Seeing none. Thank you very much to everyone that came out tonight. Public comment isn't required at ONR, but I do always conduct it because, again, I feel it is important for residents to at least be heard. So I do appreciate all the comments that were made tonight. With that said, we are closing up the public comment section. I would sort of defer to the committee. At this point, there could be some sort of a vote. This meeting is scheduled, the full council meeting is scheduled for November 19th at 7:30. My personal suggestion would be that we table this tonight until Tuesday evening, just prior to the full council meeting, allow everyone to digest some of the comments that we heard tonight, and perhaps conduct our vote just prior to the council meeting, if that would be the will of the subcommittee. All right. Clerk Semino, can we get an ONR meeting scheduled for prior to the full council meeting on the 19th? We'll say 6:30 p.m. 6:30 work for everybody?
6:30. 6:30.
Is that enough?
Is our 7 is?
7:30 is council.
An hour.
An hour.
You just want to do half an hour?
6:30? 6:30? Okay. All right, so we will conduct an ONR meeting at 6:30 on Tuesday, November 19th, which will be just prior to the full council meeting at 7:30. Do I have a motion to table this until November 19th?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Hume. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilor Flaherty. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Hume. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilor Flaherty. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone.